Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Del Beccaro, and welcome to Politics in Perspective for this week. What a busy week it was. Of course, it was dominated by Fauci. And in this show, in my opening statement, I'll be providing you what I think are the real lessons we have to learn from the Fauci affair. Our guest, our difference maker interview is Michael Letts, who provides safety equipment for police officers. He's not only going to talk about that, but a very interesting case in Minnesota about the hacking of the water supply system. In our political roundup, we'll talk about things like Gavin Newsom, the DSA, and others. But let's just get right to my opening statement. This week was about Anthony Fauci. Now, look, it's pretty obvious he lied. Obvious to everyone who wants to see the obvious, right? He told us, scared us into wearing masks, later admitted that there's no science behind the masks, even though he scared people, talked about it endlessly. He lied about the 6 feet. He scared us into the 6 feet, later said no science behind the 6 feet. So it's very clear that he was making this up as it went along. But of course, that's not all. He made a lot of money off this. Josh Hawley pointed out the fact that he got $1 million in grants or awards during this period of time. So he was making himself famous, scaring the world, not relying on the science. And that's what we found out since the COVID pandemic. So what are the real lessons? Well, obviously, very clear that Anthony Fauci was a liar, an unchecked public servant who made lots of money. That's the easy part. But there's a more important lesson here that we have to come to grips with. And let's start with the brilliant Thomas Sowell. Now, Thomas Sowell is, for my money, the smartest man in America when it comes to politics and history. And here's his quote. He says, "It is hard to imagine a more stupid or more dangerous way of making decisions than by putting those decisions in the hands of people who pay no price for being wrong." Now, I want you to think about that, because what Sowell is talking about essentially is all of government. Unless, of course, they are immediately called to task on it through elections. But what Sowell is getting at, if we put that back up, is that these bureaucrats like Fauci are basically unaccountable. Maybe there'll be accountability to Fauci. He has a pardon. By the way, how that gets challenged is he gets indicted, he puts up the defense of a pardon, it goes to court, and some judge, ultimately the Supreme Court, will decide whether there's evidence that that pardon should be cast aside. That's a difficult road to hoe. Some people are talking about states. What state law did he break? Some state might have a law, but it won't be as simple as you think. But the point is that the massive bureaucracy that exists, which makes many, 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 many more laws than Congress. I need to keep that in mind. Think of Obamacare. I think it was 2,300 pages. After Obamacare came into being, the bureaucracy created over 30,000 pages of regulations, all of which have the force of law. So ask yourself, who's more powerful? Congress, who may open the gate, or the bureaucracy that floods through it with countless laws? And none of those bureaucrats are held to account. And if they make the wrong decision, and they do all the time, yes, there's good people, but bloated bureaucracy hurts your standard of living as much as a sitting congressman, if not more. And there's no holding them to account. You don't know their faces. You can't vote them out. And when they do something terribly wrong, I'll tell you what happens when they do something terribly wrong. Nothing. And that's what he's getting at. Now, that's one lesson. We finally have to learn that government bureaucrats are unaccountable, like Fauci. That's lesson one. Lesson two is just as important. And this, some people say, was a dry run. The fact of the matter is that people are willing to go along with government. Now let's look at this. Years ago in the 50s, and actually before that, there were studies that showed that a huge percentage of people, over 3/4, will go along with the crowd. Let's look at that slide, if we will. The Asch conformity experiments demonstrated how willing people are to go along with the crowd. There was a series of psychological experiments conducted in the 50s that revealed that groupthink resulted in people willing to ignore reality and give an incorrect answer in order to conform to the rest of the group. Just think about that. What is that saying? Group pressure is a big deal. Now relate that to COVID. It was an intense big deal during the COVID era where people were telling others, you had to do this, without actually thinking for themselves. It goes farther. Let's talk about the next step of that. We live in the AI world. Here's a really disturbing thought about that. If we look at this next slide, what we find is that an alarming study finds that most people do what ChatGPT tells them, even if it's totally wrong. So, not only do you have the pressure of groupthink, the next step in this is people are willing to follow something simply because it's in the public domain and said with authority. And that's really important. As a lawyer, I can tell you, if you speak with authority in a courtroom and you don't shake and you're insistent, people tend to say, oh, that person knows what they're talking about. Now we live in an age of ChatGPT, where people look something up and assume it's true. They listened to Fauci. They assumed the mask thing was true. They listened to Fauci. They assumed the 6 feet. Later on, he admits that the mask thing or the 6 feet just came out of the air, or just appeared, he said. The danger is the willingness to go along. Now, throughout all of history, those in power have known this dynamic, the groupthink dynamic. And let's get to the next slide. And this is from a founder, a late founder, meaning he came late in the process. And this is Daniel Webster, yes, of that Webster family. He says there are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be good masters, but they mean to be masters. And if we keep this up for a bit, in all ages, there are men mean to govern well. Some don't even mean to govern well. They just want to control people's activities. But the reality is here, they promise to be good masters. Oh, don't worry, I'll do this for the public good. But they mean to be masters. Our founders were unbelievably well studied. And what you find is that in history, people mean to be masters. Mondami wants to tell you how to live your life. Many politicians want to do that to some degree or another. They think they know better than you. And of course, that is not at all what our founders wanted. Our founders came from a system where the king told them what to do. They had studied the collapse of the Roman Empire, and they had studied the collapse of ancient Greece democracy, and they determined these government officials should not be should not be in control of our lives. And so they created our government with 3 branches of government. It was supposed to be limited. There were enumerated powers, and that was the way they wanted the system to work. We, of course, didn't want that system. They didn't want that system, but we don't have that system anymore. And in my book, The Lessons of the American Civilization, which you see over my shoulder, I go through America from capitalism to socialism, from fighting for independence to accepting government dependence. We now, as a culture, live within a world where well over half Americans are on some form of government dependence. We've come to accept that in a groupthink mentality. And one of the real lessons of the Fauci affair was how willing during the COVID pandemic Americans were willing to turn to government, even though government has made so many bad decisions in the past, including handing out cigarettes to women in the 50s post-pregnancy to tell them to lose weight. There are countless things that government does wrong, but the danger is simply going along with what they say. We have to think for ourselves. That is why Franklin said, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." He didn't say if our leaders could keep it. He knew politicians wouldn't keep a republic or freedom. It requires us to do that. And that's my opening statement. We'll be right back with more of Politics in Perspective with Michael Letts, who is living a life of helping those by volunteerism, which is exactly what our founders wanted. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Politics in Perspective. Hope you enjoyed that. And I hope you will enjoy this next Difference Maker interview with Michael Letts. I finished off the last section talking about American volunteerism a little bit and how important that is. Our founders wanted us to take care of problems. They didn't want government to rush in every regard. And I like to highlight people who do that sort of thing. So let's welcome Michael Letts, who is the CEO and founder of Invest, that's Vest in all capital letters, USA. Michael, welcome to the program. I want to get into what your organization does and how important, but you have an intelligence background. You have thoughts. You heard some of my commentary on COVID. Have at it.
Well, Tom, it's always a privilege to be with you. We thank you for that opportunity. But let me let your listeners know very quickly what you had just said. This didn't just happen because somebody had a jalapeno pizza the night before. This has been orchestrated and planned for decades. And the reason is because America is a thorn in the side to the rest of the globe. We are free. And we are the only country that has that proposal, that has that ideology in that constitution. And the leftist liberals can't stand it. And in order to be able to get one world order, one global system, they have to eradicate and eliminate us. Well, it's very hard to do, quite frankly, when you're an armed nation. You know, it's interesting, after World War II, they did a sit-down session with the admirals that were left, the admirals and the generals of the Japanese Empire, with a very simple question. You caught us off guard at Pearl Harbor. Why didn't you just continue to advance and move into the West Coast? Shoot, it had probably taken us till you got to the Mississippi River before we were able to stop you. And it was interesting, their response. The admirals and the generals looked and said, "Are you crazy? America has the largest military in the world." And we replied with, "What do you mean? All your citizens are armed. Whether they wear a uniform or not is irrelevant. They're armed. We would not be crazy enough to have attempted to do that. This is the key. America is safe. America is the land of liberty because of the fact that we have the freedom to bear arms. Now, how do they get rid of that? Well, they've tried for decades. We'll go to Congress and we'll see if we can't pass something, gun restrictions, gun control, etc. Never seems to work for them. But they did find something that they're capitalizing on, Tom, and that is COVID. They found out in COVID that, boy, Americans will respond if they're fearful. Oh, there's something going to happen to my health. Tell me what to do. I'll do it tomorrow. And they're capitalizing on that now. And so they've gone from COVID to now they're trying to create a society that becomes so violent that you become so fearful even to go out your door that you will plead for government to intervene. Hey, what is government going to say? Oh, they've already got their cliche, never fear, your federal government is here. And that's exactly what they're going to do. They have already, this is not my ideology or my me thinking about what I think they're going to do. They've already publicly stated it, Tom. Excuse me. Their purpose is this. They have publicly stated that violence is caused by guns. Not the person pulling the trigger of the gun, but by the gun. Unfortunately, Tom, I've never met one of those guns that shoots itself, but I'm sure that they're out there. I'm just waiting to encounter one day. And so here's what they will say. You're scared, Tom? You're scared of the violence? We've got it solved. Guns cause that problem. We're going door to door. We're going to confiscate them all. No more violence in this country. Of course, we know the fallacy of that statement, but that's what they'll do. Now, once they possess the guns, how do you plan on fighting back if you decide you don't like what they're telling you to do? You have no choice. That's it. It's over. They win. America is destroyed, and we now become one world order. So that is why I make this introduction to talk about what's going on in the country. Why is there this defund the police? Why is there all these movements? It all centers around that issue that we just talked about. So what did they do? They created scenarios to divide us. Black Lives Matter. And then when they went from Black Lives Matter, let's defund the police. After all, if police are so rabid, bad, bullies trying to destroy, yank little children off the street and send them to God knows where, if that's the way they are, then why in the world do we want to fund them? And if we're going to have to continue to fund them, then let's at least not give them any new equipment. That's where Invest comes in, this charity. So why are we doing all that? We want to discourage law enforcement. We don't want anybody to feel like they want to become a cop. That's being very successful, Tom. If you talk to any sheriff, any police chief across the country today and say, hey, because I do this thousands.
Well, wait, real quick. Let's expand on exactly what InvestUSA.org does. Please tell people. I think we have a picture of your mission statement, but go ahead and tell us exactly what it does and why you founded it.
Very simple. We started this 33 years ago. We've been doing this for a long time. And the sole purpose is to provide protection to those who protect us. Why would people need that? Well, let me tell you, 33 years ago, 52% of cops had no vests at all. And they were just going out there and they would read Andy Griffith. Now, hey, Andy Griffith's a great show. I loved it. But it was very unrealistic in today's society. So 52% of cops had no vest. We decided that we were going to do something about that. I've been in law enforcement for 33 years myself. And so we decided we would create a public charity. Now, this at the time was just for my area, for Columbia, South Carolina. They had no vests at all. We said, okay. I was in public office, had just gotten to the council, said, easy problem. We're going to solve it immediately. I will get $500,000 put into the budget, and we're going to move forward and bring us into the next century. Well, unfortunately, I had to be out of town on third reading. Everybody knows, especially in ordinances, it requires 3 readings. And my colleagues decided, nah, I think we'll take it out. And so when I get back, I have all these reporters asking me, what do you think about your colleagues taking out the $500,000 for bulletproof vests for law enforcement? I did something. I was a young kid at that time, Tom. You know how we speak without thinking. And I said, well, fine. If they feel that way about it, we'll just raise the money ourselves. Boy, that was the headline the next day. All over the state, I couldn't get out of it. And so we raised the money, the $500,000 necessary to provide officers with vests. I did make here an interesting story. We had a couple dollars and a couple vests left over. I got a call from the police chief, who was a friend of mine in the town, the next town over, a one-stop light town, okay? He said, I got 2 officers. Can you help me? I said, you're in luck. I got 2 vests left. No publicity, okay? We're done with this. I appreciate it, but I'm not doing it anymore. I'll come to your next city council meeting and make the presentation. Little did I know, this officer and his partner had been shot by an escaped convict. Partner was killed. This officer had been hit 5 times. They were amazed that he lived. His niece happened to work for the Associated Press, and so he tells his niece, "I wish I'd have had one of these things when I got shot." Well, they decided that was the story. So when I get to City Hall, there are more press trucks from all over the Southeast there to cover this story than there are population in the city. So I get calls for 3 weeks after that. Can you please don't shut it down today? Do one more. Help us. Then you can shut it down or help the next person. And Tom, quite frankly, we've not been able to find an exit strategy ever since. That's been 33 years, and I don't see an exit strategy on the horizon in the near future.
Okay, so wasn't I in Colombia? Wasn't years ago? I want to say 2008. Wasn't there a Republican presidential debate in
Yes,
Colombia?
I
All
was
right,
there.
I was there. You didn't even say hi. I can't believe this.
Well, Tom, it was a little big crowd, and they probably were all interested in you, and I couldn't work my way through. You were the big celebrity, not me. So
Okay, okay. I'm not buying it, and you shouldn't be selling it. All right, but I'm interested in the rationale of your council mates who didn't think it was important. Is that back then? Was it just ignorance, or
well,
was
it's
that
not
the
even
start
back
of the
then, Tom.
mentality?
It's not even back then. It's now. With me having served on council, I can tell you exactly what my colleagues think. So I'm like, okay, I got $100 coming in. Now, how can I best spend that $100 to get as many votes as I can for the next election? I'm not caring about what's the best thing, what's the right thing to do. I want to get reelected. So I'm going to take $10 and give it to 10 different organizations. Oh, but the police department needs $30 to be able to buy the equipment they need. That's tough. I'm going to spread it out so that I can get as many people happy with me to election time. Now, what do you do when the police chief says, well, I needed the 30, now I can't have equipment? Hey, we'll get it to y'all in the next round. Who cares about Colombia? Ain't nobody even violent around here. You'll be just fine. Just make sure your guys are extra careful, extra cautious, and we'll try to get y'all the next time. Tom, the next time never comes. And then what happens is then they get to this position list. Now I've got the $30 to give them to buy the equipment. Oh, but would it look better if we hired another cop instead? Yeah, but you can't outfitting. You've only got $30. Either outfit people you got or buy another cop. It look better if I have another cop out on the street. That would look like I'm doing more. Let me go ahead and put another cop out on the street. You see how their safety always gets pushed back that it won't happen to us. We'll be fine. Now that's changed. I think people realize now that big time crime has come to small town America. There are drug deals that happen in one stoplight towns now. And when there are drug deals like that, they're armed and they're dangerous. And so they're trying to figure out what to do. Well, that was the next phase of what Invest has done. When we started, I told you 52% of cops had no vest. We got that down to about 18%, Tom.
Wow.
And about 10 years ago, roughly, the dynamics changed. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The first part, when we were getting vests, were the only thing available in the market. They're called concealable vests. You've seen them. They wear them under their shirt. They're made out of 27 to 32 layers of Kevlar, but they're only designed to stop a pistol. You hit it with a long-range rifle, you might as well not be wearing a vest. It cuts right through it like it's butter. And so, but back then, 30 years ago, Tom, people weren't proud to be criminals, okay? That's why they took the little handgun, shoved it in there underneath their shirt, and went into the convenience store and robbed the gas station. Now, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with cartels. We're dealing with terrorists. We're dealing with human sex traffickers. Billions of dollars that are made in crime across the country. And they're very proud of it. You say, why are they very proud of it? They want you to fear them so that you don't get in the way of their making billions. So how do they make you fear them? They don't pull out a little pistol and say, oh, it's a PB gun, I think. No, they pull out an AK-47 and they make sure that there's nothing left when they leave the scene. So they did dynamics change. We had to stop and create new technology. They're called active shooter vests. They have a titanium steel-based plates in them. They'll stop anything on the market. Pistol, rifle, doesn't make any difference. The problem with this, Tom, is it was developed about 10 years ago, and we currently only have 10% of law enforcement who possess them. That's translated, that's 90% of cops on the street do not have this new technology. Now, next time you're watching TV, and you're talking about the news, which I don't advise doing, but if you are watching the news, you'll see constantly active shooter reported in the mall, active shooter reported in a school at this state, in this country, or in this area. It's happening all across the United States. Realize now that when those calls go out, The officers responding are sitting here in the back of their mind thinking, I sure hope he takes his life where I get there, because if he doesn't, we're at a distinct disadvantage. They should never have to be put in that position. They're willing to sacrifice their lives to begin with to keep you and I free and safe. The least we can do is to give them the fighting tools to make sure they have a chance to come home to their families.
So, picking up on this change in psychology, I think you'll agree with me. It isn't the cartels and all of that is unbelievably threatening. But there's also a different change in the mentality of the left. Socialism in history is associated with violence. They use violence to get their way. I was struck by the Washington congressman who spoke the other day. He says he can't even hold town halls. This is a Democrat, because the moment he brings up a particular issues, he gets shouted down and it's not even safe. DSA, we have a slide here. This is an old slide from DSA. Defund the police. This happens to be in California. This is before they became famous. They were talking about this. Now they say they want to eliminate prisons. They want to eliminate police officers. They're not on the fringe, folks, of the Democrat Party. I showed in previous shows and other things that their list of priorities are the same as the Democrat Party. They have different ways of getting there. But and most importantly, they're on the fringe because the Democrats say they're a big tent. Well, that by definition means they're part of the same party.
Correct.
And oh, by the way, that's where the action is. So if you would, for people like you, what does this say about where America is right now and how urgent your mission is?
Oh, it's incredibly important. It's incredibly urgent. You raised two issues. You raised the first issue when you're talking about violence in the Democratic Party. Let me very quickly say that this violence ideology has gotten to the point it's created mental illness. We have so many mentally ill on the left ideology. You say, well, that's a strong statement. Well, let me tell you something. You know, Tom, you and I can disagree. That's great. But for me to go after you on social media, to try to destroy you, to try to destroy your reputation, your earning ability, your family, to tell people, hey, here's his address, you got to go by and pay him a visit, that's mentally deranged. That's where the left has gotten to. They have gotten so far.
And if you stop right there, they do this to Supreme Court justices.
You got it. They do to everybody.
And they try to assassinate the president. So this isn't some academic discussion about whether we should have a tax cut of 30 or 20%. No, this is people's lives and institutions.
And here's the funny part about it. Let me add a little levity to this while we're talking on this particular subject. This is the same people that say, okay, let's do away with police because after all, that's violence. They carry guns. You don't carry guns. So what are we going to do about it? Oh, we're going to bring in psychologists. Now, when Tom's pulling a gun out and trying to rob the store, can you hold just a minute, Tom? I got a psychologist coming, and he's going to tell you that that's really not what you want to do with your life, and you're going to be able to resolve this whole thing. You'll be able to go home and have a whole new path to follow. After they get done shooting you. But it's just, we want to listen to anything they have to say when they have gotten that crazy. That is the first big issue with this. The second big thing that we're talking about is, again, it drives their agenda for power, for control. We talked about initially, why did they want to do away with the police, defund the police and guns? Why do they want the control? It's very simple, Tom. And we're going to talk about this because you mentioned it before I came on the air. Look at all the fraud, the embezzlement. I mean, I can go through the list of things that this administration is dealing with right now that are just corruption to the core. Do you think for a minute they want to cut off their financial gravy train? Of course not. Now it's been cut off because of the change in administration, not totally, because just because you change the president doesn't mean you change all the nefarious people that are around in different agencies, etc. But you certainly slow them down. But so they've been slowed down. So what do they want to do? We got the midterm elections. We got to change this back. We got to get back in power and controls. We can turn those spigots back full blast again and get our money back. So that way, because if we have the money and we have the power, we have it all. We'll tell you exactly what to do, when to do it, Tom. You won't have a gun anymore. You can't dispute it. You don't like it, you can go 6 feet under or find some other place to go. And quite frankly, America is the last bastion of freedom in the world. So if you find another place to go, Tom, if you please be so kind to let me know, I'd appreciate it because I'd be looking for a place as well. But if we don't win this fight, we're going to win this fight. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah, and back to I quoted Franklin earlier. Franklin said those who exchange freedom for security wind up with neither,
Correct.
because you don't become secure. If they took away your personal freedoms at the same time, and this is what happens in history as they literally defund the police or normalize behavior,
Correct.
right? The other dynamic we didn't mention is they this is this happens throughout all of history too. You get in the 70s, Will Durant wrote about the fact, have we gone too far in the direction of the criminal versus the rest of society? This is in the 70s. And of course, the pendulum swung for a bit.
Right.
But now, and for about 20 years, it has been swinging back dramatically, saying that it's okay to act out. And you see this in polls that say the percentage of the young who think political violence is okay. All of these things are troubling. And folks, a reason why you should support organizations like investusa.org, did I get that right?
You did. Thank you, Don.
Is because the very fact that this organization has to exist tells you about the mentality of politicians,
Oh, it
right?
does. You know, it's just what you just say. Here's the other ironic part of the hypocrisy. Violence is fine as long as, from their standpoint, as long as it's directed at you. Now, if something happens to one of them, oh my goodness, the earth has shattered, the sky has fallen. You know, how did we possibly get into this position? Why would people think this way? And I look at them and I say, you fools, you're the ones that did it. Can you not see that?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, there's none so blind as those who refuse to see. Let's go into the other topic. Minnesota had hacking of its computer infrastructure related to its water systems.
Right.
On this show, we've been covering that dynamic. People need to understand that the war that you don't know this, I have a good friend whose company provides security to about a third of the Fortune 500 companies. Thousands of hacking attempts a day, tens of thousands. And he tells me 40% of them come from Russia, North Korea, China, and of course, Iran. This is part of their warfare.
Correct.
They don't have the ability to line up armies and wouldn't try. But this is just as good because destroying people, adversaries' economic capacity is a time-old way of winning a war.
Yes.
So this happened in Minnesota. If you could tell people what happened, and more importantly, why this matters on a national scale.
Well, we'll work our way backward. Why does it matter on a national scale? Because this is the tip of the iceberg. This is just starting, okay? It's not like, oh, we grabbed an electrical fence and got shocked and we're not going to do it again. Oh, no. This is just the beginning of the tip of the iceberg, and it's divided into twofold. I want to bring this up because most people do not, Tom. Yes, the countries that we mentioned, China, Iran, Russia, and we can go down the list, are determined to bring us down and to destroy us. They're providing funding. But where do you think a lot of the manpower is coming from? They are putting together leftist organizations within this country. Now, in the old days, it was kind of like, okay, if you are a member of the ACLU, whatever it might be, a leftist organization, that's it. Y'all stay to your lane. You decided what you're going to do to make this country bad, try to destroy it, and you kept yourselves. They've come up now with something new. They said, you know what? We've got a general ideology. If you hate America, we're all brothers. So let's all band together, whether it's cartel, whether it's human sex traffickers, whether it's leftist crazies, whatever it is, we're all going to band together and formulate a philosophy and an ideology that will bring this country down. You're seeing it with Mondani in New York. That's not a democratic socialist, progressive socialist. That's a communist. Let's call it for what it is. We don't have a Democratic Party anymore. We have a Communist Party. I don't believe we have a Republican Party anymore. We have a patriotic party that believes in the Constitution and believes in what this country was founded on. That's where we're at. It's one or the other. You make your choice. But that having been said, this is what's driving. Now, go back into the situation in Minnesota. They are looking for any way they can to utilize their force, which is a lot of it now is inside our country. It's not like they're hiding behind some desk in Iran or in China. They're getting a lot of funding through those mechanisms, but they're actually recruiting and bringing people on. You know, get carried a step further. We talked about their hacking on infrastructure and how devastating that will be. The other thing they're going after is this summer they've got a new pattern. It's called teen takeovers that are being occurring all across the country, where they're organizing these teens in social media to run over and occupy a place. And not just kick over a trash can and say, I'm not going to pick it up. We're talking about becoming violent. They're encouraging young people to be involved with terrorist attacks, assassinations. All the intel is there that we've intercepted. And this is what they're doing. As you mentioned before, they have no interest in coming over in boats and invading, doing landings on American beaches. They're going to do it from within. Heck, they've already got how many hundreds and hundreds of thousands, probably millions. Actually, if you want to be truthful about it, Tom, it's millions, not hundreds of thousands, that are already here. That thanks to the Biden administration, thanks to Obama and those, they've already got a place, they've already got a position. By the way, you and I paid to position them. They got the free airline tickets and bus tickets and everything else. Just tell me where you want to go, and we're paying to continue to keep them positioned. We're paying for their lodging, their food, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to get me started on something else or not, but how disgusting to have people who have fought for this country, shed blood for this country, who now have to sleep on the streets because they're not good enough to take assistance from our government. But if you want to come over here and help destroy this country, we'll roll out the red carpet for you. Boy,
Yeah,
really
I want to emphasize, people, when people think of warfare, they think of standing armies, maybe missiles, and they also think of the outlines of a adversary. The where is China? Where is Iran? But in the computer age, that no longer is the issue.
correct.
They you can you can do exactly what you described. You're an Iranian leader. You give money to someone in the United States, and that person's sitting at a desk. And the American, and I really need you to talk about this subject in the declining minutes here. We have aging infrastructure, well, whether it is our electrical grid, our water systems, none of this, I think I shouldn't say none, but we do not have what it takes to protect those in the next 10 years. And just like a vest, politicians don't want to fund what is necessary at this point. What's your thoughts on that?
You're exactly right. You carry it a step further with everything you just mentioned, plus then some. What do you think is happening with our FAA? What do you think is happening with our air traffic control, et cetera, et cetera? Folks, our infrastructure was the best in the world at the time it was built. But that's 50, 60 years ago. You can't expect something to stay the best and to stay prime condition and that kind of thing. It has to be replaced. The same thing we have to take care of our first responders. We have to set priorities. This is the problem with our public policy. Their priority is how do I stay elected so I can continue to rob you blind? That's what we have to do is we have to go ahead and call these people out. I've been very forceful about saying it's time. I believe it's gotten so bad, Tom. I believe we need to take a look at military tribunals because I believe our judicial system has gotten so corrupt with activist judges as well. That's a whole nother topic to discuss. But let me tell you, folks, if we don't take this serious and do something very quickly, we will lose this war. But the important thing that I said earlier on your show that we're going to win, we have that capability. There's no question we can turn this around and we can make America great again for the next 250 years. Only if we unite together, listen to what the issues are. They won't get them from mainstream media, Tom. Why would they? Mainstream media was getting paid by taxpayers to advocate the leftist agenda for decades. I mean,
they're also came out recently how much money they receive from adversaries when they go overseas, from Qatar and other places as
exactly.
well.
So you can't count on them. So that's why I was so happy to be on your show, Tom. Yours is about the only places you can count on that you're going to be able to get some kind of real understanding of what's happening. America, the day of sitting back and saying, well, I'm just going to work 9 to 5 and the country will take care of itself, are over. If you want to continue to have something to pass along to your children, your grandchildren, you better get involved now. Volunteerism is the best way to do it, but you better get involved and save this country. Whether you run for office, whether you volunteer, whether you help your neighbor, whatever you have to do, it's time to get engaged in society and counter all this leftist, deranged mental instability that the liberalism has proposed. I get a kick out of it. They dominate the social media. Will nobody respond to these idiots when they say something? Say, you need to go get your brain checked. It's time that we tell people we're not going to put up with their foolishness anymore. And it's time that we go on ahead and do what's right to protect our first responders, our children, our grandchildren, the American citizens to come.
Yeah, no question about that. All right, let's go back almost to where we started. How can people help your organization in practical ways with what lies ahead?
Well, there's quite a few things. First of all, go to our website, which you said mbsusa.org. You can make a donation to make sure these officers have the best. Why is that important? Government's not doing it. They need to know that we have their back. If we lose what's left of what we have, we cannot maintain safety. We will fall into anarchy, and America will fall. So let's let our guys and gals who are so brave know that we stand behind them. You can do it a second way as well. Appreciate the donation, but the most important thing I want you to do for me is tell one that when you see him next time, thank you for your service. Thank you for willing to be served. Morale has never been lower in first responders than it is today. You and I can change that. Third thing we need to do is from our young people. Mainstream media is telling you that you'd be crazy to be in public service, or you'd be crazy to be a first responder cop. We're going to change that. We've got a graphic novel. You can see it behind my shoulder. We're just producing called Bulletproof. My day, Tom, it was called a comic book. Okay, I'm a little outdated in terminology. It's a graphic novel now, but it is for all of our young people. It shows first responders as the true heroes that they are, even with some special powers. You're going to have to see the graphic novel. We want every young person in America to have one, to get their position changed so that they can understand this is an honorable calling. And then, of course, the other thing that they can do is make sure. This is what I tell people. Two other things, real quickly. Nothing wrong with owning a firearm. Nothing wrong with knowing how to use it. Make sure you've got one in your home. Make sure you take your kids out to the range. It's a great opportunity for a family outing. Okay, teach them how to use it. They'll have respect for it. They'll know what's going on. And the other thing I would tell you to do is, every state police department, every city police department, every county sheriff has reserve programs for officers. Volunteer. Go on ahead and allow them to take a few hours a month, ride along, become commissioned, know how your law works. I guarantee you don't want to scare the liberals. You get everybody with a badge and a gun, that'll be the end of them. So make sure you do that. Then the final thing I would tell you to do is speak up. When you go to the water fountain at work and they say, they tell you a story, it's totally inaccurate, it's totally BS. Say something about it. Say, well, I was listening to the Tom show. That's not what they said there. Look here, and get engaged, and let's start fighting back. Silence has to end. That's what happened with the Germans when the Nazism raised, is they refused to say because they were scared. No need to be scared, folks. If you want to be scared, wait till we fall. Then you can be scared. Right now, we need courage to save America.
So, one of my best friends in life, Bruce Lesser, has volunteered 33 years for a local police department, wears a uniform and does patrols and things like that. So I agree with you. One last thing I want to say. We saw over this last week a young 16-year-old save a life in the ocean, and it was sensationalized. I think, just my opinion, I think police officers should do more PR so that people can really see what they do in saving people's lives, so that the narrative that out there isn't the narrative the left wants, but being heroic. Being a police officer is not for everyone. It takes a lot. It takes unbelievable steely spine, and we need to tell their story more. Michael, thanks so much for coming on Politics in Perspective. We certainly enjoyed your perspective today.
Well, thank you, Tom. Let me throw one quick thing in there. We're going to answer what you just said. We have a TV series coming out called Bulletproof Run that will do exactly what you said. We're going to honor our first responders, what they really do, and let America see how valuable they are.
All right, great. We'll be right back with more Politics in Perspective. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that perspective. Volunteerism is important, and the morale of our first responders is challenged every day, not just by the media, but it's a difficult job, and we need to support them. So that's why I wanted you to hear the Michael Letts story. So please help them if you can. That is investusa.org. All right. I want to turn to our political roundup, but before I do that, I once again want to thank Ex American News for carrying us Sunday nights at 7, worldviewtube.com, AUN TV, with Rick Trader and George Landreth. I want to thank them, YouTube and Rumble, and you can get all these shows on politicalvanguard.com. So this is the political roundup section where we just talk about some of the news of the day in short. Gavin Newsom is first up here. He has forever not given up his tax returns. He wants you to think that he cares about you, the little guy. Of course, his policies of tax hikes on gas and other things hurts the average person. The higher minimum wages hurts consumers throughout California. I just went to my favorite fast food restaurant and paid $18 for a meal deal. How does a family of four pay all that money? It's ridiculous. I've been fortunate in life, but that's ridiculous. That's pushed by the minimum wage. Anyway, he gives out his tax returns, and what we find is that he claimed in his tax returns $200,000 for household staff. Folks, just think about that. They pay $200,000 a year that they're claiming as a tax deduction on household staff. That's Gavin Newsom. He cares about you. My favorite thing, though, is that he wrote off a gift of $45,000 in Armani clothing. Now, you don't get to do this. First of all, you would never buy $45,000 in Armani clothing. Very few people do. But what Newsom does is he buys this expensive clothing so he can go around with his slicked back hair and his Wayfarers and Armani. And then when he does, after a certain amount of time, he doesn't want to wear the clothes anymore. So what he does is he donates them from Goodwill. They put a dollar value on that, and then he takes a tax deduction. That's Gavin Newsom. Don't think he cares about you. He cares about his image because he said image can be a great defense. He's all about image, just not results. Number two in our political roundup. Let's go to California again here. Oh, actually, let's talk about tariffs and China. We've been talking about the threat that's posed in that regard. We find out that the tariff system in America is forcing drug companies to bring back production to the United States. Now, let's be clear. A lot of these companies have gone abroad because it's cheaper to do business abroad. Why is it cheaper to do business abroad? It is not just labor. That's a factor. But America's regulatory and tax system drove a lot of pharmaceuticals abroad. They drove it to China. We are unbelievably reliant on China for drugs. Who on earth would rely on an adversary for drugs? Rare earth minerals. We can go on and on and on. I'm not saying we should never do business with China. I am saying there are certain critical things in today's world, in the technological nuclear terrorist age, that require homegrown production. Steel, drugs, getting rare earth materials. And the way you keep it homegrown isn't to tax the middle class, but to reduce the cost of doing business here. I don't blame companies for going abroad. I blame our government for pushing them fraud. And I'm glad we at least have a president who is starting the process of unwinding all of that danger. Now, here's Javier Becerra. He's running for governor of California. If electing him doesn't equal putting up a white flag, I don't know what does. He was HHS secretary during the height of Biden's border debacle. And here's a story of the California Post where young children were basically housed in a container yard. He knew about it. Now you know about it. But I thought the Democrats never did this sort of thing. Of course they did. Becerra did it. He's never answered for the thousands, hundreds of thousands of children that were lost under his administration of HHS, who had authority over this issue. He is completely incompetent. He doesn't have a mind of his own. He's told what to do. It'll be a disaster as governor. If those lost children aren't reason alone to vote against him, I don't know what to say. All right, let's go back to the Democrats with our final roundup. Establishment Democrats warn socialist candidates could cost the party the midterms. Well, there's a problem with that. The problem with that is the leadership says we have a big tent. Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, they all say we have a big tent. They're part of the party. They have dozens and dozens of candidates. So either you exclude them or bring them in. And if you bring them in, you can't exclude them. So the establishment Democrats, who do they have to blame? Now, remember, I've made this argument many times, and I'll tell it again. They didn't come out of nowhere. Their platform for the last 5 years has been the same as the Democrat platform: Green New Deal, trans rights, government paying for all health care, defund the police, on and on and on. Now they came out with a new platform. It's beyond what the Democrats are, but they have been welcomed into the party as a big tent. So the Democrat establishment can wake up all they want, but it's the Democrat Party's children that they're arguing with. And on the ballot this fall is whether America will wake up and see that as well. Is everything Trump doing great? No. Is the economy perfect? No. But I'll tell you what could be far worse. The Democrats in control of our government again. Well, that's our show for this week. I hope you will join me on Substack. Please share this show in particular, or all the shows, and we'll be back next week with Politics in Perspective.